Hi, this is day 10, 100 Days of Thankfulness with Tom Anderson. Today we're talking about the importance of facing trials. One of the most commonly asked questions of people that are trying to figure out the God thing is, if God is real, then why does he allow so many bad things to happen to good people? I have 5 different answers for that, and I'm not saying that all 5 answers apply to all circumstances, but hopefully this will help. The first answer is the reality that we live in a fallen world that's under a curse, according to the Bible. In secular terms, really what that means is people do bad things. Take, for example, the first week I was talking a lot about how nutrition is kind of the main thing that's causing us to lose our health and die from all these various diseases. It's not like the people that are creating all these processed foods that are effectively killing us, it's not like they're unaware of what they're doing. They have done their own research studies and whatnot, and really what it comes down to is it's about money for them. They're running a business. So they might add 10% iron, or they add a little bit, but they're going to do whatever they can to keep the cost low, even if that means slapping on a label that says natural or good for you, when it's really just meaningless marketing. What's actually inside the package is not that good for you. But what they will focus on is making it taste really, really good, because they want you to keep coming back and getting it. They're going to keep the costs reasonably low, so that you, again, don't have any excuse for not buying their products. But ultimately, what it comes down to is it's greed. So yeah, bad things are going to happen as a result of people just looking out for their own personal interests. The other thing that's good about trials is, I shouldn't say what's good about trials. The other reason trials happen, and I need to put this in perspective of what I was talking about yesterday, where I was saying I was depressed and I was in a relationship that was really selfish. So the second answer is we have this idea in our head that we all deserve better. When I was going through that depression, my friends would surround me and they would say, oh, I can't believe she did that to you. You don't deserve that. You're such a nice guy. I mean, why would she do that? Why would she break up with you? And I was soaking that all in, and this was all comforting words for me. But the reality of the situation was, I really wasn't that nice of a guy. I was very selfish in that relationship, and the same thing is true with with the reality of us being in the world. We tend not to appreciate the things that we get every day, that we're taking for granted, and we feel like when something bad happens that we deserve better, when the reality is no, we really don't. I mean, each day we get certain blessings from God, and we need to recognize that and realize that we're getting things that we don't necessarily deserve. And so when we turn around and we say, God, how could you be so mean to allow this to happen? We aren't recognizing that. We aren't thanking him for all that he's done. And we feel like we deserve more, when in fact we really don't. Everything about our life is a gift. The third reason, or I should say the third answer, to that question, and this is where I start getting into why trials are actually good, is it helps us to seek God. So when I was going through all that depression and whatnot, it caused me to, it's usually at our lowest point, right, that we're seeking God. If everything is going great with our life and we don't, have a relationship with God, there's really no reason to even consider one, right, because everything's great. Now, when we start facing trials, and, especially if it's a really bad one and we're facing, we're going to die or something, we turn to God in that moment of desperation. And why is that good? Well, let me put it this way. I would rather live a life where I'm in a prison camp my whole life and being tortured every day just to have an eternity where I'm with God. Now, I would rather have that over having, being like the most famous, most wealthy person in the world, just having everything I want. That kind of blessed life only to, be eternally separated from God. Because this life is pretty short by comparison of eternity. So if we have that eternal perspective, it all starts to make sense why it's so important that we come to God. Jim Elliot put it this way, he is no fool who gives up what he could not lose in order to gain, or gives up what he cannot keep in order to gain that which he cannot lose. So even if we give up our life in order to have an eternity in heaven with God, it's a pretty good trade. So the fourth answer to the question has to do with growing. What I was finding with my, I keep coming back to my depression and my relationship that had ended, and so I was, with my first girlfriend, I was very selfish. With my second girlfriend, that second relationship lasted 4.5 years, and again, I was really selfish throughout it, and I was growing in certain areas because of my suffering from the first relationship, but it really wasn't until I think the end of that second relationship where I was starting to learn how to love unselfishly, and Karen, my wife, is the one that taught me, and the circumstances have to do with I was at a point where I had just started dating Karen. I had called it off with Becca, my earlier relationship, and found out that she was now dating my friend Greg, who Greg is a great guy. He's a super nice guy, but I was starting to feel jealous about it, and I was starting to get confused, and I was just starting this new relationship, and did I really want to call it off with Becca? And so at one point I was thinking, I need to get that relationship back. And so I went to Karen first to let her know what I was about to do. And Karen taught me something about love that is just so amazing. She said to me, after explaining what I was about to do, that I was going to, I don't know if I can, but I was going to at least try to get Becca back. And I said that to Karen, and she looked at me and she said, with tears in her eyes, she said, "Tom, I love you. I just want you to be happy. If that's what you need to do to be happy, then I think you should do that." And I realized then that I was being a huge fool for two reasons. The first reason is I was not appreciating what I had in front of me. The second reason is if I was truly unselfishly loving Becca, I would have to face the fact that I probably wasn't the person that was going to make her happy. And Greg was going to be much better at that than me. Because like I said, I knew that I was kind of a jerk for those 4.5 years, and I knew what a nice guy Greg was, and so as difficult as it was, I had to just swallow the fact that, yeah, Greg might be the better man for her. And on top of it, how lucky I am to have Karen. So I can't, if, say, my first girlfriend had never broken up with me, I probably wouldn't have grown in maturity to even be able to come to such conclusions. But Karen also really helped me to, she taught me by example how to have a mature relationship. And I think a lot of that has to do with her upbringing too. She had all these friends that were Christians. She had never actually asked God into her life at that point, but she was always around it and always involved, and so I think a lot of that rubbed off on her, that she knew how to love unselfishly, and she was able to teach me that. So that's reason number 4, is growth. And then reason number 5 is just when we face these trials, we learn how to appreciate the good stuff. If we never face the trials, we tend to take those things for granted. If you're standing in a room and all of a sudden you can't breathe, you don't know what's going on, you just can't breathe, and for 5 seconds you can't breathe, I can promise you, at the end of that 5 seconds, when you can breathe again, you're going to be really thankful for the air. It's just, that's the way we are. We tend to take these things for granted. So that's the 5th reason, is it just helps us to appreciate all the good that there is. In 1 James 1:2, James says, consider it pure joy for trials. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you face many trials. So what is that about? I mean, yesterday I talked about Dawn and how joyful she was, and she was talking about her personal relationship. She wasn't talking about her trials. And so that brings up someone else I want to highlight today. Her name is Laurie Miller. It's her birthday today. Happy birthday, Laurie. So Laurie, as long as I've known her, she's had that same joy. She's always put God first, so she's very much like Dawn. But I think the one thing that really strikes me as odd about her, and I didn't realize this when I first met her, but when I did first meet her, I met her through my wife, Karen, through the MOPS organization, Mothers of Preschoolers. It's a Christian organization. So I met her through the church. When I first met her, she always had this, nice smile, and that's, what I remember. And I didn't realize at the time that she was going through some really, really rough stuff. I'm not going to go in the details of what she's, that's her business. But I just want to share and let Laurie know I'm so thankful that you were able to be that example for me of someone that was truly going through just some horrible things, some horrible struggles, and always just been so happy, and always been so faithful for the Lord. And then, the other thing about Laurie that I really like is, tomorrow I'm going to talk about this more, but I'm going to get into the importance of listening. Laurie is such a good listener. I mean, we get together and we talk about all kinds of things as, a group of friends, and she's always real quiet, but she listens, she pulls it in, and she's always very respectful in that way. So I'll talk more about that tomorrow, about the importance of listening, but I just wanted to say thank you, Laurie, and once again, happy birthday.